Hi everybody, welcome to today's session on Ask Octopus. We are in, this is the first time that we're doing this together. Today we're doing this from Brisbane Conference and Exhibition Centre, and that is for our Octopus kickoff. So what we have is myself, Derek Campbell, and we have Ryan.
Hello.
And Bob Walker.
Hello. Okay. Trying out our fancy new meeting now today.
Yeah, we're all in one room. It's like really nice. So it's
First time ever.
Our first kickoff Ask Octopus.
Yeah, we had to turn off all our speakers because we kept getting this fun feedback.
And you'll see that everybody's laptop is just at the edge.
Yeah.
My sticker game isn't as strong as yours.
All of the stickers, all of the time.
Exactly.
Excellent. So today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite features of Octopus. It's the recurring scheduled deployments. This is definitely a guilty pleasure. This isn't one from, unfortunately, this isn't one from one of my customers. This is definitely one of my favorite ones. Mainly because it gives us the ability to not do deployments every morning at 7 AM. I'm sure you guys in the past have been requested, how often, have you guys been done deployments out of hours?
Yeah. Or I'll get the request that, hey, we want to deploy every day at noon. I want to deploy to QA every day at noon, the most recent release.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite features. I actually, back when I was using Octopus, probably Octopus 3 level, I built a Hangfire app to actually do scheduled deployments.
Right, there you go.
Yeah, I think every instance of Octopus I set up now has a scheduled deployment somewhere in it. So, I mean, it's getting used quite a bit by me.
Well, that's it. It's definitely something that's one of my favourite things. Because, I've been there in the past that you have to do deployments. And I've done it in the past where I've maybe been a little bit of a blocker in the past. I've actually blocked deployments outside of certain windows. For instance, deployments on Fridays. So yeah, obviously, this is the benefit of Octopus. It gives you that ability. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk you through how to do this. Really straightforward. And as you can see here, this is a project. This is our OctoFX demo project. And on the left-hand side here, you've got triggers. And then select Add Trigger, Schedule Trigger. And then this is it. So this is where this is really useful, as Bob was saying, it's recurring. Things like quite often you want to go from dev to test. Each morning, you've done your code, you've run your test, it goes first thing in the morning. And if you're definitely brave, you can do that so that you can do production every night at 5 AM. Yay!
That's really, really brave.
Well, that was mine. We scheduled it to go at 5, but we woke up to make sure it went. But didn't have to click buttons right after you wake up. That's perfect.
That's it. It's more about focusing on drinking the coffee
That's right.
and pressing the button. So we've got here, I'm just going to create a quick trigger. You've got the schedule, daily, days per week, days per month, and the cron. Actually, I really like the cron expression. It's so useful. And then, you've got your interval. So in this instance, we're going to do it on the hour. So you can actually set it so that you can have recurring, so every hour, or even just a once-off as well, which again helps. But I'm going to do on the hour every 24.
I think it only allows you to go up to 23 because otherwise it's just one.
Yeah.
That's it. Another one.
Okay, so we're going to do this every morning. You don't be doing this at 9 o'clock. You'll be drinking your coffee at that point. Let's get this done beforehand.
There we go.
And then time zone. How many times have you came across a product and because it's out of sync, maybe looking up your local NTP like this is a way to use your scheduled time zone. And I find that really beneficial because the amount of time, different stuff I've done in the past, you land up accidentally deploying 8 hours, either before or after you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
Yeah, tools that default to UTC, but you didn't think about that when you said
it. Yeah, it's nice that it's right there in your face like that. Yeah, I remember like Azure, every time you create a new VM, it's always UTC, so you have to go in and change it to the time zone you want it to be in.
Being from the UK,
oh yeah, that's right for you.
I've actually been to the Centre of Time at Greenwich, so it's quite interesting. I've stood over that. If you ever get the chance in London, I definitely recommend it, and tie in with your scheduled time zone here.
Nice.
So what you can do is you can deploy your latest release, or additionally a brand new release. This will work. Just select which works best for you. And then another really useful one is actually using channels. So for instance, this is a demo one. And it's like, for instance, you may find that the database doesn't get updated that often, so you can just do web only. You know, you don't have to do all of your deployments at the time. And then
that option only shows up if you have multiple channels, though. So like, you get a default channel, it's always
that's not going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point, Bob. And then from here, we've got, you can just select, you know, your source environment. So for instance, dev, and then you want to go to test. Additionally, what I've also found this really useful for is when you want to push production back to development or even to test.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So that's it. You know, you want to get that down, and just in case there's any, you know, any issues, you update that, and then that's it.
I think a good use case for that would be, I worked at a company, and every month we would push everything from production down to pre-prod.
Yeah.
Kind of try to keep everything in sync. So having that's really handy.
See, that's it. That's it. It really, really helps.
Nice.
Maybe you have some hot fixes that went to like only staging and production, and you push them down to QA.
Yeah, but mostly it was for the database stuff, just to make sure everything was. We had the schemas all up to date and everything, but.
Let's say you do get some drift occasionally. It definitely helps. And that's it. You then hit save, and as you can see, you've got your schedule triggered.
Very nice.
So that's me. I'm going to hand you over to Ryan.
All right. Let me find that share button. Just want to share my screen. Yeah, so I had an interesting question from a customer I work with pretty close, and not something I've set up before, but I can definitely see the use case. It's how can two teams share a project but not be able to affect each other's environments, meaning their infrastructure or the variables they have configured. And at first you may say, well, you can do that with teams and scoping them to environments.
Yeah.
That's a solution, and that's a pretty good solution if you don't want the same environments. Like, do you want them to have different dev environments? So are you going to create a dev team A, a dev team B, and then scope them that way?
That's scale super. That's kind of a goofy way. That's a scale super well, because I mean, what happens if you have 20 teams?
Right.
Like dev team 55. Like, man.
Yeah, or you have 4 or 5 environments, and you're going to make 2 each.
I saw that before. It just goes, you know, suddenly you've got 100 different environments. So yeah.
Yeah, so if you've talked to me about anything that's to do with scaling and environments, you know that my answer is going to be tenants for this.
Shoehorn that in
I
everywhere
want
you can.
I want to use tenants as much as possible.
That may be a nickname here for you, Octopus. Ryan, tenants, Russell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have 2 Ryans, so we need a way to differentiate.
Tenant Ryan and
Tenant Ryan and
Aussie
Ryan.
Aussie Ryan, yeah.
There you go.
We can do that. So I'm going to just walk through. I did a setup with using tenants to model the 2 teams, and works out pretty well. It may not work for everybody who has this case, but it does work for, I don't want to affect infrastructure and I want the variables separate.
I do like how you used spaces for Ask Octopus.
I did, yeah. We have Spacify on our demo instance. The first thing I did was like, well, I'm going to move this so it's not as cluttered.
Yeah, it's like I think it was the first day of release. You're like, can I update this to spaces?
Incoming.
Yeah.
So I'm going to click into my project. So you notice the project had just 3 environments: dev, QA, production. Now, when we get to the overview, you'll actually see that I set up my tenants as team A, team B. Pretty generic names for this example, but that could be your SaaS team and your self-hosted team or something like that. And they're sharing those environments, dev, QA, production, but we've actually split it out for tenants. So now they can have their own releases, they can deploy to their own machines within those environments. And then we can, what we'll actually see, there's a second part of this demo where I'm going to log in as a user on one of these teams and see what it looks like from their point of view. So there's a few pieces that I'm going to jump through, but we can see through the overview that they are separated. Now, when we look at variables, the project variables are empty. And that's because I've used templates, which are the way you create your project variables for tenants. So I've just got a few simple ones: connection string, URL, port. Anything you want to be different per team, you can create a project template variable. I'm going to quickly just jump into the infrastructure. You can see we have, even though they're unavailable, we do have 6 targets set up, 3 of them marked for team A. So it's dev, QA, production for each team. So you can see they're actually tagged to those tenants. And speaking of the tenants, I'll just go and show I do have 2 tenants, one for team A, one for team B.
Now, if I wanted to, I could definitely have, like say dev both teams share the same dev server or something.
They could share the same dev server. They would be able to see that if you did that. So in this case, it was strictly, we want them to be completely separate.
Okay.
If you don't mind them sharing the dev infrastructure, yeah, you can tag both the machine with both tenants, but they'll both be able to see that.
Gotcha.
I'm just going to quickly jump into like team A and just show the variables. So you can, this is where the variable separation comes in, because tenant variables are stored at the tenant level, not the project level.
Mm-hmm.
You'll know that only people with access to this tenant would be able to come in and change any of the dev, the QA, production variables.
So that really means that if team A couldn't break team B's.
Right, they would, like, unless you give somebody from team B access to team A, they wouldn't be able to come in and change any of this.
That's really nice.
And the way this is set up is it's kind of like, it's a little bit more effort, but it's not a common scenario. It's a little more complex scenario, so there's a little more effort that goes into it. So I actually have team A and team B set up as teams within the space. So we'll just look at team A. So you can see they have the project deployer, environment manager, tenant manager, all the appropriate user roles, but they're scoped to that team A tenant. So that means when I'm in as a user for this team, I'm only going to be able to do things that are tagged or specifically associated with that tenant.
Now, I think with project, if you have project lead, I think in an environment manager, that might be all you need.
Maybe I may have been
You just get a little overzealous.
Yeah, well, I think I started with what do I need. I was like, oh yeah, I need project deployer. Oh yeah, I need this. And then I was like, I probably only need project leader. This works.
I'm trying to set this up for a quick demo.
Yeah, so that's really the setup. You have your project, you make it available to tenants.
Yeah.
You create tenants that represent your teams. You create teams that represent your teams, and everything should be pretty happy. I'm just going to switch over to the dashboard. So now I'm in. You can see I'm a team A developer is my user. You can see my dashboard is a little bit different. It's only showing me one of one tenant instead of one or two of two.
Nice.
When I click into the shared project, I'm only going to see my team A tenant.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to deploy now, I can come choose a new release. I can deploy it. If I actually go into the releases screen and try to deploy that, when I choose my tenants, I should only see my tenant. So yeah, it even auto selects because it knows that I only have one available to me.
That's actually really nice.
Go into my infrastructure. I've got 3 unavailable ones. I'm only going to see the ones tagged to my tenant. If I go to my tenant screen, I only see my tenant, so that means I can go in and change my variable. My settings can affect the other team.
Well, that's it. It's really really good, because what I've actually saw in the past is people accidentally doing deployments to the wrong environment, to the wrong. So this really fixes a lot of that, and it also declutters a lot of the user interface, which is super helpful.
Yeah, you're kind of moving the dimensions by which you you scale Octopus. You're moving it from I'm going to set up X number of environments per team to I'm going to keep 3 environments, 4 or 5, and you have more like staging and pre-prod and all of that. You're going to keep a small number of environments, and you move that complexity to tenants, which handles it a little bit better. In some cases, like this case, it handles it better. And tenants, of course, are usually used for things like I'm deploying to different customers, but you can see it works for, it's pretty generic. It works for things like I'm deploying to a different team, I'm deploying to a different region or a data center. You can definitely use it that way.
Yeah.
So that's it for my question. So I'll jump back to the question screen while Bob gets ready to share.
Yep. Give me a quick second.
I do love tenants though.
You definitely do.
No kidding. Okay. So this question is kind of near and dear to my heart. And this isn't something we got in recently, but this is something that we get asked quite a bit. And it's, how do I'm doing, say, a hotfix release. And so I only want the latest hotfix branch. This might be a previous version. So let's say I'm on 2019.1, and I need to do a hotfix for 2018.12. And that needs to, if that's in production, for example, 2019 isn't that. So doing the versioning rules and how do you kind of handle that with channels and everything like that, that's really kind of a good question about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to walk you through a couple of these scenarios and then kind of show you how to set that version rule. I know that you guys really like these version rules, and we probably talk about that for what, hours?
Let's be honest, we could have an Ask Octopus. We could have a webinar just on that.
Probably could.
That's an idea.
I was going to say, like, all 3 of these so far, these have been like some of my favorite features.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a couple channels set up. I have a default channel, and then I have an emergency bug fix channel. And then I've added in here, I've added the comments as the description, like what is the life cycle? So dev, test, pre-prod, prod. Now let's pretend I'm working on 2018.11, and that's what I really want to work on at this particular point in time. Maybe this is a little bit farther behind. But what you can do in here is you come in here and you select the steps in this process, the package steps. So I have a couple DB up steps. So I'm gonna go ahead and select those. I'm gonna go ahead and select this deploy to Azure. I'm not gonna select this one right here, this Octopus metric, because that's coming from a different feed. So these three are coming from the same feed. So they have to come from the same feed to set up the version rules.
Right.
So what I would do is I would actually add another version rule for the other feed type. If you do select this, the feed designer or the design rule gets all confused. Like, please select the feed you want to use. But then what you can do in here is you can select the version range and the pre-release tag. Now it's kind of hard to understand what's going on here. So we have this handy dandy design rule, which is what I really like. So it can even show you what's not going to get picked up. So you can see right here, I have 2018.10. That's not going to get picked up, but I can come down here and I can actually add in 2018.11.1.25, and it should show you that, yep, this is going to get picked up. But if I add say a release tag or a pre-release tag, say testing, then that will show you, nope, we will not accept that. So that's what that pre-release tag is doing. It's basically saying, don't allow any pre-release tags whatsoever.
Yeah, I always use the rule designer.
Oh yeah.
It's like, yeah, because I usually forget the exact like syntax for it, but it's like it's just so good because it shows you which parts are broken.
Yeah, exactly. And I use that all the time. And then I also use our documentation. So if you click on this link, it will send you over to this documentation, and you can come down here. You can actually get some examples on some patterns to use to show you if you use this, if you do that. We also do a pretty good job, I thought, the design rule, especially up here, showing you kind of that.
It's just so clear. I mean, ultimately, this is it's just making everything a lot easier for everybody. You've got a far greater confidence in making sure that it matches up.
Absolutely. And so let's pretend. So I'm going to go back to my other channel. Let's go to the emergency bug fix one. And let's say this one, it's on the older version too. So the previous month's version. But let's pretend that we have a rule now that it has to have a pre-release tag. So none of these pass, but we could also add in here, we can also say hot fix. So it has to have the phrase hot fix. So if I do testing, it would say, nope, that's not valid. But if I did hot fix or post fix, hot fix / something, it should pick it up. Oh, and it doesn't like the slash. My mistake.
But it's good because it tells you that it was an invalid version.
Yeah, actually, that's really nice. So I can see, yep, now it will only pick up hotfix releases. So I can set this up to say, my emergency bug fix releases, those package have to have that tag of hotfix, which is I think is really, really super handy on something like that. Yeah, it's a quick way to show you how to add version rules. We can, if you want to add a new one, you just click on Add Version Rule, and I select Octopus metric and kind of do the exact same thing. Let's say in this case, I only care about that, and you don't have to specify a version range. So like some of our customers, they say, I only want to hotfix anything with that pre-release tag, so like hotfix or anything like that. I don't care about the version number. I just care about, just has to have that pre-release tag, then this can be used. So you don't have to specify a version, like a version range or anything like that. Okay.
I was going to say what's nice about that too is when you choose that channel in your create a release, it'll automatically swap out the packages available.
And in fact, because I don't have, that's a really good point. Let's discard these changes really quick. Channel default, but it'll say no version selected because none of these versions that I have are valid. That's a really good point. I'm glad you pointed that out. Yeah, it won't let you pick invalid versions. And if you were going from, say, a build server and you try to send in an invalid version, it'll throw an error at you saying something like invalid version or some other error message that I can't think of right now.
Yeah, something I had set up was like I think we had we used pre-release tags for different things. So anything that was a feature branch was -dev. So those couldn't be picked up by our production release channel. And then we had -hotfix too. So we needed to go skip dev and like the first few environments and go directly to staging and production. You could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, that was it for our session of Ask Octopus Brisbane edition, where all three of us actually get to be in the same room. If you have any questions, emails, if you have any questions, go ahead and email us at support@octopus.com. Join us on Slack for a community edition, or you can comment below, and we'll be happy to try to answer it as soon as we can.
I want everybody to wave.
Yeah.
Yay!